Rest assured, if you attempt to bring destruction down upon me, I shall do the same to you.
Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Mono Green Devotion to Elfball, and note that we're mostly mono green, not exactly. And so what this deck is a big mana deck. We're trying to leverage Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, get a ton of green pips on the battlefield and generate tons of mana. And so the way we're trying to sort of abuse the devotion mechanic is by playing a bunch of Leylines that on turn 0 can come in the battlefield if they're in their opening hand. So we have Leyline of Abundance, which lets Manadorks add extra mana and can be a mana sink if needed. Also running Leyline of the Guildpact, which can provide 4 green pips and let our lands tap for any color. So together these allow us to sort of cheat on devotion really early on in the game. Also they work well with sort of a Manadork plan, so we could see we have our suite of Manadorks right here, trying to get as much Bowmaster's resiliency as possible, but there is some vulnerabilities in there. And what we're trying to do with all this mana is turbo out Craterhoof Behemoth. So just a famous finisher, and just a classic Elfball strategy. Get a ton of mana, slam a Craterhoof, get the win. And that's where we are all in on that plan. Another contributor to that plan is Kinnan Bonder Prodigy, so allows our Manadorks to tap for extra mana, and has a mana sink where it can fish up non-creatures from our deck from the top 5 and put them on the battlefield. And so we have a lot of ways to find Craterhoof. So we have running 4 copies, we have 4 Kinnans and 4 Once Upon a Time, so like it's trivial to find Craterhoofs in this deck. And even if you don't find them, if you have a Leyline of Abundance out there, you can really rapidly make your Manadorks into threats in their own right. Lastly, we're also playing Leyline Binding, which, we could sort of get some value off Leyline of the Guildpact, reducing this cost, but even if we can't reduce it all the way, like we're not running any Triumphs. We're a Manadork deck, so it's easy to pay a little bit extra, and this just gives us extra mileage against decks. And this is a build that I'm super excited about. I'm really having a lot of fun with, and I'm excited to show you. Let's jump into some games. Now this is a very interesting hand. It is a 1-lander, but we have tons of Manadorks, and this is a triple Leyline of Abundance hand. So if we can get a Nykthos, we'll already be off to the races as far as devotion. So satisfying with the turn 0 action. And we draw another elf. So we're gonna have to crack Flooded Strand to start casting stuff. Now almost always in this deck you're trying to get blue early on for Kinnan, but this is a rare instance where you actually need white early on because there's no Kinnan in sight, and Deathrite can get us the blue when we need it, but we have Leyline Binding, so we might as well get the white. Our opponent plays a second blue-green land, and yeah, now our elves tap for 4 mana, no big deal. Drawing Craterhoof is pretty nice. Like, we're getting real close to lethal already with that. Past the opponent, Lorien revealed. Now, if you're playing a lot of Timeless lately, seeing these blue-green lands, you may already know what's coming, and yes, it's show and tell. Now, this is a fortunate situation where we have Leyline, and our Leylines could be able to snag their Omniscience with, basically limiting them right now to instant speed casting. Alright, so opponent has a Brainstorm while the Omniscience is still in play. And let's see if they have any follow-ups. So, this was recorded a little while ago. The new technology some show and tell decks are playing is Born Upon a Wind, to allow them instant speed wins in response to something like a Leyline Binding grabbing their Omniscience. So, but we managed to snag it without too much damage being done. So we're going to play Delighted Halfling, and you could see my timer burning up. I was really agonizing over whether to hold Craterhoof for one more turn, but decided, always having to do Craterhoof math, decided that this was good enough to deal a ton of damage and have a lot of attackers left over. So the opponent plays their land and packs it in. So managed to sneak a win against show and tell right there, so that felt pretty good. And that's the power of, Leyline of the Guildpact plus Leyline Binding gives us just a lot of mileage against certain decks. We're gonna go ahead and lead in Delighted Halfling. Honestly, there are some subtle nuances as to which ones you want to lead on. Kinnan was an amazing draw right there, and the auto tapper sometimes get used because natively the Delighted Halfling taps for colorless, So I had to sort of explicitly tell it to use it for blue in this instance. Anyway, when you play this deck, you got to watch out for the auto tapper, particularly with Delighted Halfling. All right, here's the consider from the opponent. Blue-green land, milling, Lorien revealed. Like, this is already looking like another show and tell deck when you see these blue-green lands and sort of sitting around the first couple turns. Gonna crack the land here just so we can get the Deathrite Shaman mana set up and decide, you know, with Leyline of the Guildpact, just gonna get a basic. Now Nykthos here was an incredible draw. Now, I go ahead and spin Kinnan here. Honestly could have played the Llanowar Elves first off our forest. Probably should have done that because we rip a Craterhoof right here. And this is me hastily doing some Craterhoof math and realizing that yes, indeed, we actually have turn 3 lethal right here against presumably show and tell, but they're not going to have anything to show for this. And yeah, lock up the win. So if you enjoy seeing show and tell get dumpstered, please Elder Druid that like button. Thank you. And move on in the next hand. A single ley line to start this game. And yeah, going to go ahead and lead with Once Upon a Time for 0. I really like Once Upon a Time in this deck. It just gives us more Craterhoofs. Now we are playing Lurrus, so like there is an argument to picking up a second Craterhoof to try and like protect ourselves from Thoughtseize, but just go ahead and pick a Llanowar Elves because we only had one Manadork in hand, so it would be helpful to have more of them. All right, here's Ragavan, and we have a second copy of Kinnan, which is nice to have the redundancy against red-black. They're gonna have plenty of ways to deal with Kinnan, so play an elf, play a Kinnan, and pass. Alright, let's see what the opponent... Orcish Bowmasters. We are somewhat vulnerable to Bowmasters in this deck because we have 8 Manadorks that only have 1 toughness. We're sort of maxed out on 2 toughness ones. You could go Gilded Goose, but you know it's only like a Manadork half the time, so definitely because we had the spare Kinnan, we're gonna trade with that Ragavan back there. Ragavan just starts running away with the game really quickly, and didn't want to let that happen. My opponent has Swift Spear and Roiling Vortex. Vortex is going to start chipping away our life total, and it's going to allow Swift Spear to get a good attack in here. We need some good draws. All right, Mystic is okay. Now remember, Kinnan is adding on to the mana they add, as well as Leyline of Abundance, so it doesn't seem like we have a lot of mana, but we actually have quite a bit right now, if the creatures can survive another turn or two. Okay, Okiba Reckoner Raid. Kumano faces Kakazan. Opponent's getting a ton of value out there, and they're gonna have a bunch of creatures coming pretty soon, and we're just gonna have to take this hit. We're just biding our time. My opponent shocks in an Eidolon of the Great Rubble. Alright, Roiling Vortex is tough, and then we draw Nykthos. And obviously we're gonna play it. The question is, once again, complicated Craterhoof math because we're trying to figure out how many attackers we have, how many creatures we have boosted. Mathed it out and realized if we didn't have lethal, it would decimate their board anyway and likely be in great shape. So send everyone in. The opponent realizes they have nothing and they just take the damage and die. So like an awesome win against Red-Black Lurrus right there. This is just a beautiful hand. We have 2 ley lines in our opener, plus a Once Upon a Time. Opponent has Dragon's Rage Channeler. Gonna lead with Once Upon a Time to see if we find like possibly a different land or a different opening play. So we can get a spare Nykthos. Doesn't seem useful, so we're gonna grab the Elvish Mystic. And because of Leyline of the Guildpact, we can lead with Nykthos. Maybe it's not the best idea. I'm not sure what kind of land destruction they could be playing. Now, I played like sort of the most expendable Manadork first, but honestly, like with Bowmasters, probably should have led with a Delighted Halfling instead. So that was a little minor mistake. Opponent has Ledger Shredder. So because of Leyline of the Guildpact, we already have a 1-mana Leyline Binding. And it seems, it's hard to say, it is useful to like hold on to it for a threat, but honestly Ledger Shredder seems fairly threatening. It's going to grow really fast with all of the double spelling going to be going on. Not to mention it could be binning phoenixes along the way. So opt for just to take care of the, what's it called, the Ledger Shredder right there, but it's not 100% certain that's the right play to do. So, and then it's looking pretty grim already as the opponent plays, you know, Faithless Looting bins 2 phoenixes. Opponent plays Bobble, and then there's the third spell to bring the phoenixes back, Unholy Heat. So it's looking pretty grim this game. But the thing is, like, had we saved the Leyline, would it have been looking much better for us? Honestly, like, it's still been pretty bad. This is just one of those games where they had the double Phoenix, and they were on the play also, so we have tons of mana right here with Nykthos. Not super useful way to profit off it. What we're going to do here is play a Delighted Halfling off the Nykthos mana, and then fire, you know, 1 Leyline of Abundance activation. And that's one way to sort of use our mana. So I set an upkeep stop on the previous turn to possibly fetch, but realized it could buy us 1 more turn if we didn't fetch. But yeah, the opponent just has Lightning Bolt, so we are dead. And that was too bad. We had a pretty good opener, but the opponent had a better opener. So we just move on to the next game. And yeah, this is a great hand. No Leylines though, so there's sort of like a lot of awkward draws load in our deck since we are rocking 8 of them. Alright, opponent shocks in a Blood Crypt and plays Ragavan. We're gonna draw first and then Once Upon a Time. Alright, so there's Nykthos. Gonna go ahead and just use Once Upon a Time, see what we should grab. Deathrite seems pretty strong in this matchup. Now, I make a critical error here. I'm just so tunnel visioned on playing like the most expendable one just to block the Ragavan that I just neglected to think about Bowmasters. So that was just like a catastrophic play, and it honestly was super avoidable. Just should have played Delighted Halfling and just left that out there as a blocker. So that was really bad. That chokes our mana and like gets the opponent ahead on mana. So we're gonna play Delighted Halfling and play the fetch land to try and play a Deathrite Shaman, and then just nightmare scenario right here. One horrible thing leading to the next is the opponent had Stifle for the fetch land because he played the wrong creature on turn 1. That was... So we're gonna trade a Ragavan here, but it's feeling pretty hopeless right now because our lands are looking exceptionally awkward since that fetch got stifled, and here comes a Death Shadow as well. So that one mistake is just sort of like causing just sort of us to just a downward spiral for our game plan right here. Elvish Mystic seems like too little too late at the moment. But we could have had more mana in play and they would have had... Anyway, things are just going poorly for us right now. But it just shows you how important it is to think about stuff like that, like your X1 creatures. Like, we play them in here for the upside, but you gotta be so careful in the face of Bowmasters. An opponent shocks in some damage to grow their Death Shadow and just sends it there. This is a great attack right here. Some people would maybe keep the Bowmasters back, but it's just a great all-in move from the opponent because they're able to push so much damage. So I like that attack from them. Alright, Ragavan goes back to hand. There was an argument for... honestly, yeah, I probably should have blocked Ragavan, but I really wanted to keep the Manadork just for like that slim ghost of a chance we have of coming back into this game. So now we're finally getting some board presence, but it's really grim, and Ragavan's gonna dash back in. The opponent sends it there, I think. So I'm carefully mathing out the blocks and how we can survive and just doing damage control, but neglected to realize that they had a fetch. And so, yeah, they can just boost the Death Shadow at instant speed, and we're dead. Very fast games, one way or the other in this format sometimes. But yeah, just wanted to have you comment, what's your favorite Leyline? Playing Abundance and Guildpact in this deck, but there's a lot of other good ones. Alright, Inquisition nabs Deathrite Shaman. Opponent's companion is Gigantha, so let's see what they're rocking over there. Now this is where you can really go wild with Nykthos because, well, at least could have gone wild. Opponent has the Beseju, so I guess that's an argument for holding back Nykthos until you can use it right away. Opponent slams us with Beseju. End up deciding just to grab a Hedge Maze, get that Surveil value, and yeah, we can bin that extra land. So that's pretty unfortunate because we had like a ton of mana at the ready. Could have really emptied our hand and then started pumping them with Leyline of Abundance. Still, won't be that bad of a turn. There's some weird things you could do, like we're tapping Delighted Halfling for colorless, but Leyline of Abundance adds an extra green, so that's how we're able to cast that last Manadork. Alright, let's see what the opponent's follow-up is. Deathrite Shaman. Anything else? Tarmogoyf. Okay, so opponent is trying to jund us out right here. Leyline Binding is nice. So the reason my clock's running down here is because I'm trying to figure out the combination of tapping that let us play Leyline plus activate Leyline Binding plus Leyline of Abundance. There's a lot of Leylines in this deck. Ended up deciding just to hold Leyline Binding back. I think that might have been a misplay though against like presumably like, well, like an Inquisition, probably like a Thoughtseize deck also. So, but we draw Craterhoof right here, which is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to tap a lot of creatures to cast it, but it's still gonna be just like a massive outpouring of damage right here. So it should work out fairly well. I mean, we'll be sending 17 at them. Alright, so opponent has a Fatal Push to really reduce the damage. But, you know, they're going to be taking a ton, and we're going to have like a Craterhoof left over, plus some Manadorks, plus we can always just pour mana into Leyline Abundance if we needed to bide our time. So opponent plays Bowmasters on our end step. They could have maybe blocked more damage, but honestly, yeah, it's not really useful. They're hoping to maybe rip some like removal spells right here and like get back into this game, but yeah, they pack it in. I love all the interesting things going on in this deck, and it feels like we're able to bring a lot of broken cards together into this shell. Like once upon a time, it's banned in tons of formats, like it's super strong. So getting to play it here for like either to fish up a Nykthos or Kinnan or Craterhoof, like feels like we're like getting really good usage of Once Upon a Time. Not to mention being able to put Leylines on the battlefield for 0 mana and just sort of cheat our way up to like a really big Nykthos. So it just feels like we're getting to do some busted stuff that's like really fit for Timeless. And I like the sort of redundancy, like this build feels like really tight, like there's a lot of good interplay going on. I did feel like maybe could use a few more fetches to make sure Deathrite Shaman is like always on, so maybe like 1 or 2 more, but then you're running the risk of like being like really fetch heavy. So but that's something I was thinking about, but honestly I wouldn't make many other huge changes beside it. It's been a really fun and satisfying deck to play, and Leyline Binding plus our speed gives us game against show and tell as well. But yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.